Welcome to Cultivating Careers, a podcast for women growing through career change. I'm your host, Coach Flo. Here we share honest stories, practical insight, and cultivate a space to grow because careers, like people, grow in seasons. Today's guest is entrepreneur Kathleen Joseph. As a registered nurse, her passion for Caribbean development and social change led her to pursue a master's in communication for social and behavior change. Graduating in 2007 from the University of the West Indies Mona campus. She also completed an executive master's in business administration
Mhm.
at the Arthur Lockjack campus. Wow. In 2015, she co-founded Trinibakes Limited and is leading it to be the top producer of health frozen dough. She has led the company to being the winner of an investment from the UTC and has had to transform herself from academic to an entrepreneur and from an entrepreneur to corporate leader. She values being a pioneer in transitioning and is passionate about legacy and intergenerational wealth creation. By the end of this episode, you will walk away knowing exactly how to pivot industries in midlife. Wow, Kathleen, welcome. I can't wait
So
to hear about all of those stories.
boy, listening to you read it and saying, wow, I really do plenty things,
You have lived life.
Yeah, I'm living life.
That is so great. Now, you started the start of the bio indicated that you are a registered nurse, and then you wanted to pursue this master's in communication for Caribbean development and social change.
Yeah.
Let's just dig into that. What was the seed that planted that idea in your head? What was happening in your life at that point in time?
Well, I consider myself a Caribbean woman. I love the Caribbean. And so I started as a nurse. My initial career, I wanted to be a doctor, and then I didn't have all the academics. So I did nursing, really to supplement that. And then I found myself. And so I started as a nurse and I love pediatric nursing. And somewhere around 1986, 87, when the whole HIV issues were abound, I got into HIV nursing around 1990. And it's there I met and I was introduced to something called behavior change communication. I didn't know it existed. I just knew I had to find ways to help people succeed. And there I met Rose Danella. I can never forget the name. And they introduced me to something called Focus on Kids, which was a behavior change program that helped young people between the age of 12 to 17 change their behavior by a systematic approach. We had to identify the behavior that needs to be changed. We have to teach them the steps to change. And we came up with this model called SOCA. So stop, explore your options, make the right choice, and then act. And then you had to then act. And so I pushed my nose into it. I didn't know what it was, but it felt right. And I found myself. I am passionate about behavior change and helping people succeed. And so they said, well, help us to set up this national program across the country. There were 9 centers. I had no coordinating skills. I couldn't even use a desktop good. It took me about 3 hours to write the first document on the desktop. And then I lost it because I didn't save it.
Oh
I
no.
made every egregious grammatical error there could be. And I was floundering in the middle of the sea with my natural personality that says jump and then look to see where you can land your foot. Came true. So they began training me, and I was just a natural at communicating with young people. I love the age 12 to 17. I can't deal with them after 18 and 19 when they have their own life. Between 12 to 17, when they're just enough that they have an opinion, but they still need guidance, is my sweet spot. And so I started working with these persons, and I found out this actually had a professional name. communication for social behavior change. And then the more you learned about it, the more you understood that the soft skills are really the hardest skills. You can
Mm-hmm.
be a great mathematician, a great doctor, a great lawyer, but if you can't connect to people, if you can't speak to people, if you cannot have a sense of engagement, you will fail at most things. So they will come to you because you're good, but they really didn't want to be with you. And I realized that the soft skills are my passion. So social and behavior change is where I started my consulting career. We would design programs, and that took me all over the world. I went from there, I went to the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society and set up the HIV prevention program for 22 islands. I went to Thailand, Dakar, all over the world, designing programs for young people to support behavior change. And I actually thought I would do nothing else, actually, because I absolutely loved it. I did the master's. And interesting story. So when I did nursing, it wasn't a degree program. It was an associate degree. But to get into a master's at university, you need a first degree. And so I argued that I had more than a first degree. And they agreed. And so I was able to get into the master's program without a genuine first degree, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
my route. But I was able to convince them that not only because I did HIV work, because of the programs that I designed, because of all that, that they should accept me into the program. And they did. And I started my UE career that way in Jamaica. Go figure.
Okay. Listen,
Uh,
I see in all these skills that an entrepreneur would rely on, but we will get into that later on.
well, I didn't
So,
see it then.
well, I'm hearing the passion. I am hearing the persuasion because I know what it is to argue with the administration at the
Mm,
University of the West Indies. For
yeah.
me, I would say my bachelor's was an exercise in
Mm-hmm.
advocating for myself because
Ah, okay.
as a working student, the institution was set up to, I felt, to block me out. So every semester it was, dear Dr. Ghani, because at the point in time, Dr. Ghani was the head of social sciences, the faculty, and I had to advocate for myself. So yeah,
Oh.
definitely I can see the
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial skills of persuasion coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, you said you had an effective consultancy. So was that before or after the masters in
But
business administration?
coming out of doing that, I wanted to be better at the business side of this whole consulting thing because
Mm-hmm.
and I needed to do another master's. I was that kind of person who needed to do
Mm-hmm.
something else. I wanted to stretch myself, and I thought I'd want to get into business. Now, not the business that I'm in now, in addition to everything else I do, but I decided I'd do a master's in business administration because I wanted to understand how to run a business. And in fact, when I really think about it, I was into analysis paralysis. So, okay, every time I had to start something, you was kind of thinking through, I need this or I need that. So, and
Mm-hmm.
of course, with my overambitious self, I had to do a master's, not just a little entrepreneurship, but a master's in business administration, right? And in the first term, maybe within the first 3 weeks, I knew I was in the wrong master's. So I started in a MBA, and everybody there was talking about things I'd already done. And I said, this is not here. I'm not supposed to in this class. I
Right.
could bring too much to the table. I need somebody to stretch me. I didn't want to be in a room where I was the brightest. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to be in a room where my experience was more than the rest. I knew there were deficits and I wasn't sure what they were, but having these little children around did not help me. So I went to Joala Rambaran and I said to him, I'm trying to figure out where I place. So he said, you're in the wrong cohort. He said, you need to go to the executive MBA where you meet captains of industry, where the
Mm-hmm.
corporate leaders are. And there you present information and thoughts that these persons are now trying to understand. So they can't stretch you. And forthwith, I came out of the MBA and I went into the EMBA. And there they
Mm-hmm.
stretched the liver string out from thinking from an executive point of view, thinking from developing corporate social responsibility and the financing and the data and the marketing and all this. But for me, I am a transformative HR personal minded person. So I was the one who always wanted to help the worker dealing with people who was looking at profit. so you could understand the conversations in the classroom.
Yes.
And I was thinking about, how do I do that? So how do I transition from focusing on the employee as a person to also focusing
Mhm.
on the employee as a part of your production? It wasn't natural to, and it still isn't. And I can't. And I didn't. But I
Mhm.
understood that you also had to look at the person who's working for you as a part of your cost and how to structure that to ensure that you are still getting profit. So I had to transition my whole part of my philosophy and figure out how to still be me in the midst of all of that. So that was what the MBA did in stretch 3.
Again, entrepreneurial skills coming through, taking on a challenge. But
Yeah.
and as someone who is currently working in HR, I understand
Mm.
balancing that dynamic
Yeah.
between being the advocate for the employee and the advisor to the board and the directorship,
Yep.
and trying to be fair to both, because
Exactly.
both profit is
And people.
important, and the people, because
Mhm.
without the people we can't make the profit.
Exactly.
So balancing act is one that requires a lot from you.
Yep.
Okay, so we finished the EMBA,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So how did we get from there to Trinibakes?
Well, girl, hear the joke. So I started my career not in nursing, but in a bakery. I was 18 years
Mm-hmm.
old. We just had 1990 coup, right? So you can date me. This is called I. So we had
Don't
1990
worry,
coup,
I remember too.
right? And there was a bakery down in Belmont that was taking on. So I went to start to work, right? I was teaching because I was always
Mm-hmm.
ahead of myself. So I decided to go and start to work in the bakery. And you needed a little money. I was right on the road. I could walk to work. You leaving to go down to work 5 o'clock in the morning, and you start to work in the bakery. And then the coup came, and then sometimes you had to stay whole night in the bakery and they make bread because there was curfew. So I had bakery
Mm-hmm.
curfew. Um, but you started there, and I just had a knack for the dough. So the first week I made the dough, I was able to go home, make some, and start to sell to little shops around. But of course, with no understanding that how much work this is really going to be, I would have started and I had a good
Mm-hmm.
taste and I could taste it dough in my head. I could taste the flavors in my head. So I didn't need to make it to taste it. I tasted what I made in my head. So I did that, and then that went on. I went into nursing, etc., etc., etc. But I had a girlfriend who's actually a part of our board who loved fresh bread and hated to put her hand in flour. So I'll whip up her dough and I would send it to her. She loved fried bake, and I would whip it up and I send it to her. And so one day I was saying to my husband, there's a good business idea. I said, look, in this deep, amazing tune, this is a God idea. And I watched him the cut eye of his lifetime. What do you mean by this is a God idea? What that meant to me, translated as we need to do this, you're going to have to do the work, and we're going to be successful. All that was in that statement. So I said to him, you're on your own. And
Right.
I didn't bother with. And then the poor man with his lovely, wonderful self went out to buy all and started to get ordered. I'm like, what is he doing? Does he not understand intrinsically? And this is a skill I didn't know that I had, but I found out that I had. I can see the issue and see 5 and 6 and 7 layers down. Because in order to
Mm-hmm.
do this, it had to be a numbers game. And so unless you wanted to do it small, and I do understand doing things small, it's not in my nature. So I didn't know where he was going with this thing, and then who was going to need to do, and how we going to package it, where we going to sell it. All those things came to my mind. I'm like, what is he doing? But then I decided, if we're going to do this, it needs to be done well. First of all, we couldn't have traditional recipes. So I sat down, came up with all the flavors in my head, and came up with them. Secondly, we had to do this properly. So we started testing the dough. I needed the first 1,000 pounds of dough on my living room table by hand. All right. And so I did the
Mm-hmm.
dough. We put it in the freezer with a little home fridge, right? You put it in the freezer. And the next morning, I open the freezer and the dough fall out because it rains overnight and it's all big. And because we used to do these big balls. And I said, okay. And then we went to this place called Whoosh, because as I told you, I don't know how to start small, right? So Whoosh was a delivery service. And she said, why don't you turn those balls into 6 little hubs? And we turned them into 6 little hubs. And we cling wrap it on those meat trays. That is how our packaging started.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to Master, you see the beautiful packages. It was on meat trays. So we cling wrap it, and the flavors were phenomenal. Everybody we met, bar none, was so excited about the concept because we sell the frozen dough to people. So you get the pleasure of making it yourself. We just help you, support you, and it's intrinsic with my natural tendency to want to support people, to help empower you. So you get to make it yourself. You get to get the glowing remarks because, oh, good, Flora, you make dough, you make fresh bread for me. So you get to get all that, and we're just there in the background supporting it. And so we started doing that, and we went all over the place with my frozen dough in Santa Cruz. And people walking home with the door wrap up. I'm like, Trinidadians are the most amazing people. Then they want something, they walking, oh, I'll go home with my dough and I'll make it home. And we keep getting reviews and reviews, and everybody who heard about the idea were excited. And then I stopped and I said, okay, we're onto something here. How are we going to get from point A to point B? So we started that literally, and then literally on the living room table. So I'm completely taught because my mind races, right? The other factor that was critical is that I was an older first-time parent. So I had my son at 43. Yes. Right? And I said to myself, if you wait so long, 43 at night, nearly dead, you at least need to be home to take care of the child. So when I left the National Mentorship Program as a director in 2015, I was doing this alone, but the numbers were beating us. The cost of production was too high for us to make any profit, and we needed to change all that. So we started looking for partnership, got funding from the Ministry of Trade, bought equipment. My husband stopped his woodworking career of 20 something odd years, bought equipment, and we started doing it over and over. And we started to expand and expand and expand until right now we have a 3-story factory, 10 plus workers. Hatco is our distributor, and we're at a different space in the journey. But the entrepreneurial journey was a very, 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 very difficult one. But it taught me something. I don't feel. You just don't feel.
Okay. I
I
like
just
that.
don't feel.
Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned that you didn't yet recognize some of the skills that you were learning from your earlier careers.
Yeah.
So do you think that recognition happened? That, hey, these are skills that I have. I just need to transfer them to this new experience, this new career as an entrepreneur.
Well, I just don't know how to give up. And so
Okay.
I was very, very determined. So when I got into nursing, I made some decisions. I said, I'm going to stay in bedside nursing in 5 days. I think 5 days
Mm-hmm.
enough is to become an expert at this, and then I'm leaving at the end of 5 days. And so my husband at the time said, so leaving and do what? I said, I don't know. Something will come up. And so I have this tendency to believe, to express it, and it happens. Right? So I don't easily, I'm not easily demotivated. I have the tenacity of diamond, and I
Mm-hmm.
love pie. So I love
Right.
coming into something completely new without any clarity. It's a very safe space, and I understand it. I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
understand what you need to do. I need to create it. So it allows me to express myself really, really well. And so that tendency to come into things and to pioneer things and to start, when I went into HIV nursing, I was the first person in the region who had that post, and I had to figure it out as I went along. And so I developed a tendency to work with risk. I'm not afraid of risk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also developed the tendency to be, listen to me, I am determined like hell. I do not feel, and the more you push me, the better I become. Because if you tell me I cannot do it, surefire, it getting done. So I started with this thing with Rose Danell, and I couldn't even use the computer. I did not know where the power button was. That's how bad it was. And then I was the person leading the national
Right.
program. So you understand, starting from a place where there's no clarity, you're not too sure, and going through the phases to get to success is something that is a skill that I have. And that skill carries me through every phase of this business. The other thing is that I really like challenging situations to deal with. Part of my challenges is my strength and my weakness. Is if it's not challenging, it's boring. So here's the
Mm,
transition that I had to make. Part of business is boring. There's a lub dub. Every day somebody must come on time. You need to check these boxes. You need to make sure you produce your 2,000 pies.
mm,
You need to make sure it's done at a particular standard. Those things must happen consistently. And I'm a creator. So that what is creative about doing that? So I had to figure out and train myself to manage my discipline to make sure those consistency matter. Because when you don't do that, you don't hit your targets financially, you can't pay your staff, and your business will close. So understanding
right.
those nuances about your strength and then working your strength to your advantage, but building competencies in the areas you're weak is another area that I had to grow. So I pulled my natural risk taking and pioneering mind and problem solving mind into starting, but I had to develop the discipline of a corporate organized person. Talk about hell, it was challenging.
Well, I'm now going to ask you, like, did you face any resistance, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
internally with yourself or
Mm-hmm.
externally? People say, you crazy, you're giving up your good job and taking a chance on this business.
Well, boy, my fear was never a failure. My fear was of
Mm-hmm.
success. I
Okay.
was never afraid of failure. I don't understand that. I don't understand failure. So I was never afraid of it. But I was afraid of success because when you succeeded, you did succeed again and again and again. And
Right.
I wasn't always sure because I could sell an Eskimo or a fridge. If part of it was just my natural tendency to sell out the world, or it was that this is genuine, this is real, this is sober, this is authentic. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to figure out that I was a bit of both. I am very convincing. And when I'm finished convincing, I had to now tell myself, how are you going to do that thing you just say you could do? So it
Right.
is the natural part of entrepreneurs to go out and believe everything positive. But when you're transitioning from an entrepreneur to a corporate leader, where people's lives depend on you, where taxes need to be paid, where statutory obligations need to be done, where consistency and quality, where people want to come and ask you, I need to cause this to send this product internationally. When you have to meet your targets, it requires a certain amount of growing up. And
Mm-hmm.
so part of my challenge was how to manage everything because I'm a mommy. I'm the kind who be at this game, but yeah, I'm that. So I have to be fully involved. My son
Right.
got his first medal in cycling. I thank God I wasn't there. I might have a heart attack. I might have be running out on the thing crazy. Yeah, I'm fully mommy, right? I'm fully
Right.
wifey. You understand? I
Mm-hmm.
still cook. You understand? So all those things, and I'm all of those things all at once. And so I had to figure out how to balance that, how to delegate, how to hand people over things and not go back the next day. I take it back to make sure you're doing it good and then hand them back. You know, how to grow out of those types of things. And those were some of the challenges I faced internally. And then my mother's 95, my sisters are in their 70s, and I am the old woman having children.
Mm,
Who have the support. My sisters and they may have had mommy when my sister is 71 and the other one 60 something. So
mm-hmm.
nobody can pick me up with this 12-year. Well, then it was a 4 or 5-year-old who was running crazy health skelter. So you had to figure out how to build your support while you build a business. And that was some challenges I had to face.
Well, my next question has to do with networking because I know
Mhm.
once you are in the realm of ownership,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, and as you say, a corporate leader, which means you're expanding. Having a strong network is key to that success. So, how did you go about building that network?
Well, the friends that I started with Lockjack, you see, I went to the executive MBA. So I still have that
Mm,
circle of friends, and my closest ally, friend, confidant, buffer, reminder, everything is on the board. And so that helped me. I also joined the network of Christian businesses. And so I was able to have these kind of conversations. And I really have had to figure out how to work the net while I'm building business. So I'm actually now at the place where I'm networking in the authentic sense of the word. Because most of the time I was
mm-hmm,
out in finance and making sure somebody, because when people, because I didn't do traditional bread, when you first learned it, there was a lot of loss, a lot of mistakes, a lot of people didn't know what to do with this pak choy again. Pak choy in bread? We start with the conversation. Why the bread red? Beetroot in bread. So all of those
mm-hmm.
things meant that I was so focused on the business that I wasn't networking with nobody. But now that you are seen as stable, now that you are expanding, you have to go and hobnob and chat and have these conversations. And I found that was a bit of a challenge for me. So I went to my first corporate event in years, something that FCB invited us to, and chatted and that kind of thing. But I still have to work out this networking thing. But I
Mm-hmm.
know how to talk. So I guess I figured it out.
Great. Now, most entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you may have covered this during the executive MBA, they talk about having a personal brand because once you are typically the face of the business, your brand game has to be strong. So, were you like intentional about building your personal brand as you were building the business?
I think I'm still doing that. I'm still the face of the business, but I'm trying. The name of the brand in the store was unforgettable, and always it was about my son. I have an unforgettable son, and people say not far from the tree, but he on a different level. So I I think I know I light up the room. I come into a space and I own that space and I take over the space. And my son
Mm-hmm.
just so you can imagine, and he likes to sell. I like to plan to build. But so I have now, I think, because I'm now starting to network, I'm refining that brand. But people know me by a couple of things: tenacity, determination, and she just don't fail. She
Okay.
just doesn't fail.
I like that. I like that. Now, I want to just pivot back to something that you mentioned earlier, and you just shared it again that you just don't feel that tenacity and the
Hmm.
resilience and the confidence that listen, I'm going to try this thing and it is going to work. Almost willing it into being.
Yeah.
Like sometimes for those of us who are looking into
Hmm.
executing a career transition, we will dip our toe and we say, okay,
Right.
we'll try this thing here. W- Tell me, what mistake do you think people make when they try to pivot too quietly or do it too slowly or do it in a small way?
I think that I think you need to do a bit of both because yes, I'm
Okay.
jumping and hope that I land on my feet, but I break my foot a couple times. Right? So
Right.
there needs to be um calculated risk taking
Mm-hmm.
versus uncalculated risk taking. My initial approaches were it must work out. Now I've willed things into being and they have worked out, but not without bruises. And some of those bruises were preventable. So what I tell people to do is you must be passionate about what you do in order to take the risk. Let me start with that. And
Okay.
my passion was necessarily doing. My passion was that intergenerational wealth will be a reality in my family. Will be. So I took on the responsibility of transitioning my entire generation and the one in front of me from the one behind. My sister, who's 70, never finished school. She left about 13. And she is my standard bearer. That woman is amazing, right? She's never worked for the salaries I've worked for. I still borrowing from the lady when I need a 2 cents. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
She children and she disciplined them, and I had the benefits of watching all my sisters before me who their children. So I saw the
Mm-hmm.
sisters whose children are struggling still, and I saw the sisters whose children were not struggling now. And I could see these are the things that I could learn. But because we came from a very, very difficult financial place, I made a decision that it stops with me. It stops with me. And to do that, you need business. And you need a space where the next generation doesn't have to think about where am I going to work, what am I going to do, and I could build that structure so that you could have a better startup point. So I don't care what it is I need to go through. I would never benefit from the business. My children and children benefits will have. I would. But it's my responsibility to do this. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, that meant every pain, every process, everything I went through is worth it because I am leaving a foundation that they could build on. So my son will start his business training somewhere around 15. That would be very intentional about that. And it
Right.
will be something that we started sowing the seed. We started a little growing the business to him and doing this and that. So for me, you had to have something that it allows you to take the pain and the pressure to stay with it. And therefore, you need to have that. And it's often not about money or it could be for you, but it's often not about money. Most time it's something deeper, something where you see legacies.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a picture of me somewhere and my husband somewhere in this business, and I will be teaching them the stories because you must tell the story. The Africans
Right.
told the story. You must tell the story. They must hear it. They must know that this business had labor, sweat, love, persistence, and you're expected to do the same. So I had that. So when you're leaving a career, you need to find something you need to fight for. And that allows you to go
Okay.
harder. Now, as I said, when my husband told me, let me do it, I watch him because I see mine start off with the passion. And as I get into it and I
Mm-hmm.
saw the potential, you can then move it forward. The other thing is get the information, research. I read like crazy. I understood I didn't want to be a typical bread on the shelf. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted people something that they owned. So I read and I researched about frozen dough. And it meant that we
Mm-hmm.
always had to have a little more technical capacity. So it met my science nerdy need to work out all the physics of the bread dough and the time and to freeze it and all the little science parts of me that I have because I did sciences. So that met that need, but it also meant I had a better cost price because what I was giving you wasn't just a product, was an experience, you know? So I did the
Right.
research, I figured it out, and then I also did research on the dough, and many times we made mistakes, and I learned against that. Desire for something to be creative in me was met through this process. And then my need to be more disciplined was forced through this process because I had no choice because now I'm leading a business. You understand? So
Mm-hmm.
that's my reality.
Wow. I love that.
Mhm.
I love how the fact that you started with passion, but you said sometimes you may not necessarily start with the passion, but you have to decide on something that you're willing to fight for because the
Yeah.
pain, the pressure, the tendency or the desire to want to give up will come. But what are you going to push through those difficult
Yeah.
times for?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So you're definitely on the other side of the pivot.
Right.
Now, what surprised you the most about starting in a fresh new industry? Because yes, I know you would have had the baking experience when you were very early in your working life, but now this is something totally different. As you said, this is frozen dough, so it's new in every sense of the way for you. So what
Well,
surprised you
a
the
lot of
most?
things surprised me. It was how much there was a need for it. What
Mm-hmm.
really, really surprised me, how people were so excited about the idea of like it seemed so simple, but it was so profound and so much people were so passionate and so willing to help and so willing to push you. And I was okay. And then with that, it started this snowball. And then I think something went wrong and the concept of giving up came up. And I don't fail. I do not fail. So we will figure this out. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember we were at a point where we weren't getting the sales, we weren't understanding everything. And we were trying to figure out what to do. And somebody picked up the phone and called, "No, Lord, trying to get on to you. Am I hi? How can I help? I taste your product so and so and so place. I am the person in NP and I want your product all of my stores." I'm like, pardon me? So I'm like, you don't feel. And so
Mm-hmm.
the tenaciousness, I didn't know I had it so much until I was faced with a mountain that I had to climb. And so understanding who you were was really surprising that I was that determined. I knew I was determined. I was always, wolfies and in charge, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand the depth of it. And that I think surprised me and the level of support and how much people wanted to succeed. I
Wow.
just saw that there's so much positivity and excitement when you create something or you're seen as innovative. And that it surprised me because it was so simple.
Yeah, well, for me, it engenders a sense of nostalgia because I
Yeah,
remember Saturdays baking bread, whether
yeah,
it be
yeah.
upstairs with my grandmother or downstairs with my mother. That smell of the fresh baked
Mhm.
bread, and if
Yeah.
granny cook a pot of soup too, ooh.
Mhm. I know what you mean. I always want people to have that. I say in marriages, we had this customer who husband liked fresh bread and she can make bread to save her life. So she used to
Okay.
buy it from us. I said, just throw away the package. She don't need it. She was like, "Honey, you made fresh bread for me?" And she said, "Yes, baby, because I love you." So
Wow.
Trinibakes saves lives. That saves marriages.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what skills became your competitive advantage? I know you would say tenacity, but besides that.
Yeah. No, it is that, but it's beyond that. It was the willingness to pivot as well, because I could be as tenacious as what I could be wrong. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot be so strong-minded, and I am, that you cannot listen, that you're not willing to learn.
Okay.
You're not willing to learn from others that are experienced, that are better than you, that are seeing things that you did not see. So I am tenacious. I am determined. I am a leader, but I'm a leader that is willing to be taught. And so I had to harness my determination and put it through different filters that allow the business to grow, because it could be strong-headed raw. And so when I was looking at pricing, when I'm looking at a marketing strategy, when I'm reflecting on what it is, the willingness to have somebody tell you, "No, I don't like that, Miss K. Miss K's money, right? I don't like
Mm-hmm.
that, Miss K. Miss K, I don't think that's so and so and so. Or, this does not make any sense." And they have to be willing to listen. It could be an employee or it could be a board
Mm-hmm.
members, right? So that and my ability to work with very difficult people. I have board members who have strong personalities, some of them stronger than me. And I am no easy fit. And people who are multimillionaires on your table. And some of them are very difficult. Somehow, God has given me the ability to hear what their heart is saying, not always the way they say it. Because
Right.
some people they're just a natural way. It could be a little bit offsetting and disrespectful. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
just not easily offended by it. And so I have
Right.
the ability to filter through the noise and hear them. And what immediately happens when they feel heard is that they took it back down two steps back. And then we were able to build from there. And so because I'm not easily offended, I'm not easily hurt, I just don't take those things on. I was
Mm-hmm.
able to I had the emotional intelligence to be able to filter through the fact that you are the millionaire and I am not. Those
Right.
are the facts. So if what you are doing has gotten you here and I want to reach where you are, I better have the maturity to listen.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if you say it in a rough tone. I could listen through that. You understand? Because life is not always going to be a bed of roses. So that ability to work with really difficult characteristics is something I think also surprised me and something I developed as well.
Okay, great. What does success look like for you in this current season?
Wow. We're on the cusp. We're literally on the cusp. We are breaking even this year, and we have persons lining up waiting to export. We expect gushes of opportunity. And right now, I'm with the team going through minute by minute how to make sure our production is exactly where it needs to be so that we're able to um, benefit from the season that is coming to us that we're in. So we have gone through plenty pain, plenty
Mm-hmm.
development, plenty maturing. And I think we're right at the place where we're going to mature into a space where I can have an executive manager and I could come to a operations manager and I could come into executiveness. Remember, I told you I'm a creator. And one of my
Mm-hmm.
strengths, create. But my weakness is I need to create. So I need to
Mm,
make I don't sabotage my own company. And so my maturity and my self-awareness tells me at a certain space, you need to make sure that there's a team who's running this. And it allows you now to all the croissants and all the other creative things that you want to do. You can go back on the table and say, let's create something different. And I can do that knowing that the other infrastructure is well run, is well resourced, is well planned, and I am able to leave it to run on its own. And so I can create again. And so success looks like making sure that Trinibakes as is, the unforgettable brand is known nationwide. And that will come through my partnership with Hat Crew, making sure that we're able to sustain it. And then allowing myself a little freedom to go back and create something. Yeah.
well, I think that knowing you as I know you, I know that you will exceed those expectations.
When I work it
So
as it.
I wishing you and the team all the success. And our conversation has been very insightful thus far, Kathleen, but we're getting towards the end. So
Okay.
now we're going to do a little bit of rapid fire
All right.
questions. So, one skill that transfers across every industry.
Determination.
Mm. One belief about midlife pivots that needs uprooting.
That you can't do it. You could do anything you wanted.
Your career in one word before and after the pivot.
Hmm. Exciting and then more exciting.
One thing you would never do again in a transition.
Say it again.
One thing you would never do again in a transition. Meaning in a career transition.
I wouldn't just jump in all the time and figure I wouldn't break my foot. I break it enough times. So I'd be a little more calculated in my risk taking. A little more responsible in that.
Nice.
But that's the only thing I may do differently. But I'm taking the risk.
Okay. One sentence for someone afraid to leave their industry.
Leave. It's going to be okay.
Well, ladies, gentlemen, listeners, you heard it. Leave. It's going to be okay. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Kathleen. Where can listeners find you and Trinibakes? Plug Trinibakes. We want to spread this. This needs to be a Caribbean and an international brand.
Yes, prophesy from a there, Flo. So we are on Instagram and Facebook. We're actually doing those pages now because we're preparing for almost like a little national launch just after Carnival into the Lenten season. But if you just go on Facebook and Instagram and you put in Trinibakes or put in unforgettable brand, unforgettable frozen dough, you will see us popping up, and you can call 255 Bake, which is 255 2253, and talk to Antonia. You would find out how to order. We cater for small and medium-sized businesses who want to do their own thing. And then just look out for when we hit all the groceries and you see me on television talking about how to make your own pastry and your own bread because we want to
Ooh,
unleash the baker inside of you.
I love it. And thank you for helping us knead the dough and foment some new ideas for pivots in our industry. Soon, for those of us who may have that desire in our hearts. Thanks again for being with us, Kathleen.
Thank you so much for having me. It really was a pleasure having a chat with you.
So, listeners, I hope that you enjoyed that episode with entrepreneur Kathleen Joseph. As we wrap up, let's just dive into some key takeaways, some rooted lessons. The first rooted lesson that Kathleen shared with us was that we need to figure out what we're willing to fight for. She shared that we need to determine that goal that is bigger than us. That goal will keep us going when facing the pain and the pressure of progress. So for her, it was the need to build intergenerational wealth for her family. For you, it might be something different. The second rooted lesson is to take calculated risks. Now, Kathleen shared very openly that she's very tenacious and often she would have leaped without knowing where exactly she would land. And yes, she would have had some successes and some wins with that, but there were sometimes unnecessary bruises. So take risks, but those risks should be calculated. I would say sit down and consider, okay, what's the worst that can happen if this succeeds? And what's the worst that can happen if I fail at this? And put steps in place to mitigate the losses in case you do fail. But don't let the potential for failure keep you from taking that leap. The third rooted lesson would be to understand your strengths, but more importantly, build habits to mitigate your weaknesses. I love the story that Kathleen shared. She is a very creative person and she knew that her creativity required her to have that openness to just delve into all the possibilities there could be. But she had to build that habit of discipline and focus on the critical routine tasks. So, know your strengths, but even more importantly, build habits to mitigate your weaknesses. And I'm sure you all were inspired by the many stories that Kathleen would have shared. But I want you to focus on one courageous next step over the next week. Kathleen encouraged us to be willing to listen and learn. Her key to continuously learning is being open to feedback from others, including her board of directors. So, your challenge for the next week, your courageous next step for the upcoming week would be to begin building your support network. Identify at least one person who may have already made it in your industry, or this is someone who might have been a former colleague in a classroom somewhere, or a friend with a specific skill that you're interested in building. Begin dialogue with that person and ask that person for their honest feedback and even ask them to serve on your board of directors. It may not be an official company just yet, but have those conversations as if you are a part of an official board of directors. As we wrap up, I would leave you with your Bloom Forward affirmation from today's episode. Here it is. Leave. It's going to be okay.
Kathleen said it. It was the last thing she left with us. Leave. It's going to be okay. I know that change is definitely overwhelming. I have been there a few times in my career, but leave. It's going to be okay. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, your career is a garden. Plant with purpose, prune with care, and if you want it to grow, you have to cultivate it. Until next time, take care. Thank you for listening.